Making headlines for this week of July 6th. Disclosure continues. NASA finally, officially acknowledges the existence of portals and silently of life beyond Earth. The God particle, a half-century puzzle, may hold clues to physical existence. Historic lawsuit. Canada becomes the proving ground for testing procedures for holding heads of state accountable for crimes against humanity. And mass arrest or containment, a 3D and 5D perspective.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. Many may recall the mysterious spiral that appeared in 2009 over northern Norway, immediately before the Nobel Awards ceremony where U.S. President Obama was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace. Speculation from all sides immediately began circulating around the globe. Mainstream media sources immediately picked up on the explanation that it was a Russian missile that had misfired, and this was the cause of the spiral in the sky. The hoopla surrounding the event appeared to subside in mainstream circles, as many seemed to accept the mainstream media explanation. Last month, another spiral appeared in the sky, this time over the Middle East. Several videos posted on YouTube show the spiral from different countries, including Armenia and Israel. The mainstream media seemed to be a bit more silent on this event. In yet another sign to suggest that the cabal is losing its power to keep information from getting out, another video has been put out, this time from none other than NASA itself, lending credibility to the belief that there are good factions within the branches of various governments around the world seeking to get the truth out. It seems the video was posted in early July, and it confirms the existence of portals beyond Earth. Listen very closely to the language being used in the video.
Hidden magnetic portals around Earth. Presented by Science at NASA. A favorite theme of science fiction is the portal, an extraordinary opening in space or time that connects travelers to distant realms. A good portal is a shortcut, a guide, a door into the unknown, if only they actually existed. It turns out that they do, sort of, and a NASA-funded researcher at the University of Iowa has figured out how to find them. We call them X-points, or electron diffusion regions, explains plasma physicist Jack Scudder of the University of Iowa. They're places where the magnetic field of Earth connects to the magnetic field of the Sun, creating an uninterrupted path leading from our own planet to the Sun's atmosphere 93 million miles away. Observations by NASA's Themis spacecraft and Europe's cluster probes suggest that these magnetic portals open and close dozens of times each day. They're typically located a few tens of thousands of kilometers from Earth, where the geomagnetic field meets the onrushing solar wind. Most portals are small and short-lived. Others are yawning, vast, and sustained. Energetic particles can flow through the openings, heating Earth's upper atmosphere, sparking geomagnetic storms, and igniting bright polar auroras. NASA is planning a mission called MMS, short for Magnetospheric Multiscale Mission, due to launch in 2014 to study the phenomenon. Bristling with energetic particle detectors and magnetic sensors, the 4 spacecraft of MMS will spread out in Earth's magnetosphere and surround the portals to observe how they work. Just one problem: finding them. Magnetic portals are invisible, unstable, and elusive. They open and close without warning, and there are no signposts to guide us in, notes Scudder. Actually, there are signposts, and Scudder has found them. Portals form via the process of magnetic reconnection. Mingling lines of magnetic force from the Sun and Earth crisscross and join to create the openings. X-points are where the crisscross takes place. The sudden joining of magnetic fields can propel jets of charged particles from the X-point, creating an electron diffusion region. To learn how to pinpoint these events, Scudder looked at data from a space probe that orbited Earth more than 10 years ago. In the late 1990s, NASA's polar spacecraft spent years in Earth's magnetosphere, explained Scudder, and it encountered many X-points during its mission. Because polar carried sensors similar to those of MMS, Scudder decided to see how an X-point looked to polar. Using polar data, we have found 5 simple combinations of magnetic field and energetic particle measurements that tell us when we've come across an X-point or an electron diffusion region. A single spacecraft, properly instrumented, can make these measurements. This means that a single member of the MMS constellation using the diagnostics can find a portal and alert other members of the constellation. Mission planners long thought that MMS might have to spend a year or so learning to find portals before it could study them. Scudder's work shortcuts the process, allowing MMS to get to work without delay. It's a shortcut worthy of the best portals of fiction, only this time the portals are real. And with the new signposts, we know how to find them. For a portal to more NASA science news, visit science.nasa.gov.
For our lifetime, we have been taught or led to believe that we are alone in the omniverse, and yet suddenly, an official branch of the U.S. government is now hinting more strongly that we are not alone, and making it public. NASA has recently been taking more progressive steps forward in announcing to the world that we are not alone. More and more articles have been appearing, indicating the sudden discovery of planets nearby that may be capable of supporting life. There was an announcement that spacecraft data suggests that there is now water on Mars. The language used in this instructional video, although not coming out and specifically saying that our galactic families exist, the language works its way around that announcement, as NASA now says that the portals exist for interdimensional travel, and they even open the door to the concept of time travel. It is implied that if these portals exist, there must also exist something else out there that is capable of using these portals. Only one U.S. mainstream media channel, CBS, has been giving some extra attention lately to a new program called UFO Chasers, being put out by the National Geographic Channel. Here's an interview by CBS with a couple of the hosts of that program.
It is probably one of those questions that most of us have asked at one time or another. Are we alone in the universe? According to a new poll, more than 80 million Americans believe in aliens, and 1 in 10 claims to have seen a UFO.
1 in 10. All right, so the National Geographic Channel put together a team to see if the truth really is out there, and it's for a new series called Chasing UFOs. Take a look.
A man named Mauricio Ruiz captured something in the sky above his neighbor's house. It looks almost like a saucer in the sky.
Almost. Very rarely do you have video footage where you have broad daylight, you have points of reference, you have something that's clearly in focus. So this gives us a lot to go on, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting this guy and finding out more.
We want to meet this guy. Joining us now are team leader James Fox, one of the nation's top UFO experts, and Aaron Ryder, who is in charge of tech and recon for the series. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Is it a ufologist? Is that what the actual...
So they say.
Okay, got it.
You could be one of those.
Apparently.
3 films on the subject, so I guess I'm commonly referred to as the ufologist.
Gotcha.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
James, you used to be a skeptic. Now you actually believe that UFOs exist. What made you change your mind?
The preponderance of evidence. It's not necessarily one particular case, but when you have generals and FAA officials and astronauts and colonels and pilots and radar operators all telling you, hey, these things are real, at some point you go, hey, how much longer can I go on denying their credibility or discounting what they're saying? So it's preponderance of evidence, both military and civilian from around the world.
And you're not just saying that because you have a TV show.
No, I'm not. No, I'm dead serious. I'm absolutely dead serious. I was doing this for free before I got involved with National Geographic for nearly 20 years.
I see you shaking your head in agreement, Ryder. But I wonder why, if these things are real, would the U.S. government be trying to cover all of this up?
Well, trying isn't something, I guess, that we think that they're doing. I think it's out of need. It would cause hysteria if the public knew all that was actually going on.
What if, though, because if 80 million people already believe they exist?
Here's the thing, and I've asked this question to astronauts in general. I really have, because I want to know. I'm like, why would anyone want to cover this up? This would be the greatest discovery of our time. And they say, well, look at it from a standpoint of a governing body or the military. have to admit to say that there are these objects of unknown origin whizzing around with impunity in our airspace, and we say, they fly rings around our
we don't have any
fastest jet,
jurisdiction over them.
and shall they turn to be hostile? I'm not saying that they are, but shall they turn to be hostile? We have no visible means of defense against them, and no military or governing body wants to disclose that type of information.
So for argument's sake, let's say that they are real. Predict the future for me. When are they coming in? Where are they coming from? What's going on?
Well, you're forcing me to speculate, but I've heard several hypotheses. I've heard interplanetary, I've heard interdimensional, and I've heard, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just telling you.
From you, something like that?
Yeah,
from the ufologist, it sounds crazy.
Apparently time is malleable, or it could be all of the above. But through the process of elimination, it has been determined that it's not us. So it's, we've been to Russia, it's Chinese, it's Japanese, it's French, and all of them had said, it's not us. So the only other possibility is
Ryder, we have this video that you taped for the show over Texas, I guess, where you're seeing a UFO. I think people can see it. We have some of the footage. What did you think you saw that night? What is this video of?
It's still undetermined to me. I mean, to me, it's unidentified. It was shocking that I actually captured it. It was something I was following, a plane route, thinking potentially that this was what these people in the town were thinking was a UFO. It was just misidentification, and then I captured that. It wasn't something that I was planning on shooting. It just happened, and I think it's really compelling.
And it's worth mentioning, too, what do you guys define as a UFO? Because some people would say, I always see that blinking light in the sky. What is a UFO?
No wings, no tail, ability to hover and accelerate from a standstill to out of sight, the blink of an eye, all without any sound, without any air disturbance, and without any sonic boom.
And you have seen this?
Military and government officials from around the world have documented these cases. They've been photographed, they've been picked up on radar, they've been visual contact. And I myself, we don't need to go into that, but a long time ago, which triggered my interest in the whole phenomenon, had a little bit of an experience with something that was a little more ambiguous, but certainly piqued my curiosity.
That's what changed you.
What changed me was the meeting with the military guys, because they're nuts and bolts kind of people. They're not the kind of, they're not looking for attention.
The reason that disclosure has not happened officially is because no government is prepared to admit that they are defenseless to a visiting civilization that could be hostile. Those already in the know, however, are aware that the negative members of our galactic families are already here and working with branches of the cabal at the expense of humanity and the planet. The good members of our galactic families, following universal law, cannot interfere as readily as the dark members did. Therefore, small steps were necessary. If you saw the movie Contact with Jodie Foster many years ago, you may remember the message given to her when she arrived on the other side of the wormhole.
You're an interesting species, an interesting mix. You're capable of such beautiful dreams and such horrible nightmares. You feel so lost, so cut off, so alone. Only you know. See, in all our searching, the only thing we found that makes the emptiness bearable is each other.
What happens now?
Now, you go home.
Home? But I have so many questions. Do we get to come back?
This was just the first step. In time, you'll take another.
But other people need to see what I've seen. They need to see.
This is the way it's been done for billions of years. Small moves, Ellie. Small moves.
However, what we are witnessing now is an acceleration, and if one is willing to look around and investigate, or if one is open to receiving information being shared by another, perhaps we as humanity can move through these shifts and changes with less discomfort and with greater joy in our hearts as we reclaim our freedom and everything that comes along with it as a new galactic star nation. Scientists around the world are this week celebrating the discovery of what is believed to be the God particle. This God particle is aptly named because it is everywhere present, but is hard to see unless one knows where and how to look at it. The findings apparently brings to an end more than 50 years of scientific study based on a 1964 paper presented by British physicist Peter Higgs that postulated the existence of a field of energy that exists everywhere. This has been termed the Higgs field. As particles pass through this field, some of them pass through easily without interaction, and others, the alleged Higgs bosons, stick to particles of matter and giving them mass. If I am understanding the information correctly, it could give science a way of explaining why things exist in physical form. CVN is not going to attempt to explain the scientific nature of this and will instead offer links in the summary to this program for those who are more scientifically oriented to go and explore this on their own. The essence of the discovery may lead to a new model of understanding based upon how matter came into existence immediately in the moment of the alleged Big Bang in the omniverse. One source, however, does offer 6 reasons as to why this discovery is important. You can decide for yourself if you agree with the relevance of these 6 points. 1. It is a crossroads in science. 2. It allows physicists to go where no scientist has gone before. 3. It could lead to unexpected everyday applications. 4. It helps answer basic questions about how the universe evolved. 5. It could change how physics is taught in high school. 6. It's proof that long, hard work can pay off. Another scientist, author and spiritualist, Greg Braden, may have already come up with an answer to some of these questions if physical creation is indeed one of the reasons for the search for this elusive boson particle. In his book, The God Code, published in 2004, Braden outlined his study of the Dead Sea Scrolls and was able to link numeric codes attached to the ancient alphabets and then to elements which are part of what is now known as the periodic table of the elements. In this interview, Braden talks a bit about the work that became the God Code.
I don't know who or what or how, but the evidence is overwhelming that there is an intentionality and a design that underlies our existence. So as a scientist, my thinking was, if that's true, who or whatever put us here on Earth would have left something inside of every one of us that tells us we're part of a greater existence and tells us that we're a family and that we're not so different from one another. And if I could find that, if I could find that common denominator, that somehow maybe it would help us to become greater than the differences, that began a search. And I combined the science that I know of biology and history and ancient language, linguistics, genetics, with the new science of computers that were now on my desktop. And Daryl, I'll tell you, I remember the very first time as a scientist that I had the opportunity to see the human genome, a piece of human DNA coded on my computer screen. And all the CTAG, it all rolled down through the screen. And my brain looked at that. And I remember thinking, I said, I don't know what that says, but there is a code. There's a language. That DNA is a language. And whatever that language is, it's inside of me, and it's inside of everyone that looks at it. And some intelligent being placed it there a long time ago. This led to a research project using computers, the best science of today, and some of those ancient texts. And the bottom line is that what we discovered is every single ancient language, the letters of the language link to very precise numbers that have never changed. So whether we're talking about the Arabic language or the Hebrew language, or if we're talking about cuneiform and Sanskrit, what are called the ancient core or the ancient root languages, there's a mysterious number that's always been linked to those letters, and nobody knows where the numbers came from. That was interesting to me. So through a process that took many years, I came to understand that the numbers that represent the letter are also the numbers that represent the elements, what we call the elements on the periodic table of life and a physical reality as we know it. So in other words, it is if the ancients, they didn't know about the periodic table of elements the way we do today, but they knew about the numbers that were represented. And when we make the connections between the letters of the ancient alphabets, the numbers they represent, those numbers, if we look at them on the periodic table, they happen to be precisely the elements that make the DNA in our bodies. Now, we have the ability to take the sequences of DNA in a cell and through those numbers link them to letters in ancient alphabets. And lo and behold, the letters spell words and the words have meaning. And this has led to a book that's entitled The God Code. It was released in the year 2004. What we know is that there is a message, an intentional message within the DNA of all life. The message occurs in layers, and each layer has its own code that must be understood for that layer. And I'm still working on the deeper layers.
Greg Braden says the message hidden in the DNA of all living beings is that which spiritual masters have tried to convey to humanity through the ages. He now reveals what's written in the topmost layer of our genetic code.
The top layer is one that we understand very well right now. The top layer in the DNA of all life literally translates into the words God, eternal, within the body. God, eternal, within the body. We don't know who put that message there. We don't know exactly why it's there. But I can tell you that all I did was I followed the instructions in a series of ancient texts, following those languages, and I married that with the science of today, and this is what we found. If a higher intelligence is responsible for our existence, and that intelligence created us, it makes perfect sense that that intelligence would have left something for us to understand who we are. And if they left it in a temple or a text that could be destroyed and disappear over time, it wouldn't make sense. It makes perfect sense that that higher intelligence would have left the message encoded into the creation itself. And as long as the creation exists, the message is intact.
Many are familiar with the elements of creation as being fire, water, air, and earth. Scientifically, fire is hydrogen, water is oxygen, air is nitrogen, and earth is carbon. Braden compared the mother letters of creation from the ancient Hebrew language, or what we may now be discovering is the ancient Irish language of Hebrew, to the original name of God in that language, Yahweh, or YHVH. Braden was able to show that these four letters, YHVH, corresponds to hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and oxygen, which represents divine creator in non-physical form. He was able to also show that humans and all life is YHVG, or hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. To simplify, what Braden claims to have shown is that divine creator left a signature so people would someday understand creation, and that the only difference between God, YHVH, in non-physical form, or God, YHVG, in physical form, is one element of creation, the element that gives mass, or physicality, to life. This would suggest a profoundly spiritual connection to the science of those claiming to have found the Higgs boson particle. Science and spirituality were separated back around the mid-1500s. Religion was given control over the non-physical domain that is associated with God, and science was given control over the physical domain. As is now becoming profoundly understood, there can no longer be science without spirituality, nor can there be spirituality without science. In his book, Tomorrow's God, Neale Donald Walsch wrote that tomorrow's God is not a singular super being, but rather it is the extraordinary process called life. Suddenly, not only is humanity the image and likeness of God, but everything else is as well. This changes your relationship with everything. This is not a new idea. Visionaries from science and philosophic backgrounds have said this for centuries. In separating themselves, however, they were not able to complete the message that is urgent for humanity to know at this time. The above is a belief that if people could resonate with, would save the world from self-destruction, because human beings would never do the things they are doing to the earth, much less the things they are doing to each other, if they thought they were doing all these things to themselves. This means altering our belief that we have been created in the image of God. Humanity has had the belief that God is like us, meaning humanoid. With the new perception, however, this change reflects a new belief that we are like God. This begins with seeing ourselves in a new way within the larger energy of life. More and more, science is reuniting with the spiritual aspects of our being. It has only been those in established power circles that have sought to keep this knowledge from people, knowing that this truth would take away their power and control over the people of the planet. On July 4th, in what could arguably become the biggest news story in Canadian history, every major media network chose to ignore the filing of a class action lawsuit against the Government of Canada, the Queen of England, and the Pope, as well as the pharmaceutical industry. The silence of the mainstream media is a powerful indication of the manipulation and control that still exists within the corporate media in Canada and in North America. One broadcaster, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, led their evening newscast with a fear-based story about cannabis growers. Now, CBN has reported fairly recently the increasing awareness of the health benefits of cannabis, and thus it would be understandable why the corporate-controlled media would be seeking to discourage its use through fear-mongering. Which story is more important for the future of humanity and the planet? Last Wednesday, with little fanfare but the support of a number of online bloggers, CBN was the only pseudo-official news program present to represent the people of Canada and the world. The Association of Civilian Prosecutors, ACP, represented by Jason Bowman, presented the documents for filing on behalf of the International Tribunal of Crimes Committed by the Church and State, ITCCCS, and its representative, Reverend Kevin Annett. Mr. Bowman comments on the case.
On July 4th, I attended federal court, the filing office in Toronto, Ontario, for the purpose of filing an ex parte motion in respect of a contemplated action where Kevin Annett, the Reverend, and myself, on behalf of others, plan to introduce a federal court action. Essentially, we seek that the Vatican, the Holy See, operating as the Vatican, headed by Benedict, and the Queen of England, the Crown, and the large pharmaceutical corporations, Bayer, for example, and others, are going to be held to account for what we, on behalf of the other parties as well, consider to be crimes against humanity, genocide, crimes of that nature. We were planning to bring an ex parte motion in respect of directions. We were going to seek directions on how to serve, who to serve, and how to serve defendants. And in order to get that clarification, we were proceeding pursuant to the federal rules, the Federal Court of Canada rules, and that's why we went to court on 4th of July. Much to my delight, the chief administrator at the filing office had a look at the material that we were planning to file, instantly realized the gravity and the nature of our issue, and correctly, in my opinion, brought it directly to the federal court. He brought it in for direction from whoever was sitting. I don't know who it was, but whoever was representing the court on that given day. So after the court had reviewed our material, the chief administrator provided direction to us, which essentially set out the procedure by which we should proceed. It set out the mechanisms that were available to us in terms of seeking justice against these parties. And so instead of having to go to court on Monday, July 9th, to seek this direction, we actually obtained it on July 4th. So for this reason, I was naturally pleased. Not only can we go ahead with our contemplated action, but we can rest assured that the parties are appropriately named and that the federal court is the correct place to be for such an issue. So these are important questions that needed to be answered. Now that they're answered, we are moving full force ahead. We will be making a filing on Monday, and we will see how the course of justice unravels. We're going to use a maxim of law, which is in Latin translates into English as, it is natural for a thing to be unbound in the same way in which it was bound.
There's a lot of information coming out at this time to expose the frauds and crimes of the fractional reserve model of banking and the system of Admiralty law. The approach that you're taking in this case is to challenge Admiralty law and its agents on their own turf and with their own rules. And you have alluded to it a few moments ago in talking about the maxim that it is natural for something to be unbound in the same way in which it was bound. Is that correct?
You're exactly right. Thank you. The only way that we're going to be able to unravel this is by the mechanism in which it was bound in the first place. I can use an analogy of a very nasty knot. You can cut the rope, but you're left with only pieces. And if you unravel it in the way in which it was originally bound, you can end up unraveling the entire knot. Tricky to do, especially if you don't know the history, but it is possible, and we have more questions than answers at this stage. But we are using the law and the rules to proceed against human beings who we can name and we can hold to account. We can certainly ask them questions and have them answer and determine at that point who, or eventually the court will determine who, if any, of these parties are actually guilty of anything. And in a nutshell, that's what we're fixing to do.
Now, this lawsuit is huge, and it has the potential to expose significant crimes within several institutions of leadership. However, it's not the only one that's out there right now. Many of the listeners to Cosmic Vision News are familiar to the lawsuit that has been filed by Neil Keenan, a lawsuit that has, for the time being, been withdrawn in light of new evidence that has come, that has been brought to that party. So another lawsuit will be refiled. You have been given the information to this particular lawsuit, naming many high-level defendants, such as Daniel Del Bosco, the Office of International Treasury and Control, Ray Dam and David Sale of the OITC, the UN, the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, the Italian Republic, the Italian Financial Police, the former Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi, the World Economic Forum, its U.S. incorporation, and the head of that organization, Giancarlo Bruno. How relevant do you feel this particular lawsuit is to the case that you're taking on at this particular time?
Well, it's interesting, but when you start to deal with with these particular circles, the world becomes actually quite small. And when you're dealing with financial matters in the realm of in excess of $1 billion, for example, the world gets even smaller. And so when we are dealing with the Vatican, the Holy See, it appears that there is major financial fraud going on. Our action deals with the human impact of it. It seems to me that the likelihood that similar defendants would be involved in our action as well. If we get our questions answered and it turns out that this is true, I would not be at all surprised.
So then it could be reasonable to say that in the process of untying this particular knot that you have referenced earlier, we can begin an exploration of the current financial system, which is imploding despite what the pundits and the media are trying to report. And part of the information coming out of that lawsuit and through other sources is that liens have been filed against the 12 U.S. Federal Reserve banks and against several international organizations, 3 of which I believe to be are the World Bank, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the Bank of International Settlements. The IMF is formerly known as the lender of last resort, and it is apparently bankrupt. Those who have held the world hostage with a debt-based economic model are being shut down, but there is apparently another economic model coming in its heels. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, allegedly have a group of countries, 140, it appears to be the latest number, now supporting the introduction of this new global economic model that is equity-based, and they are lining up against the G20 countries, which appear to be aligned with many of the institutions that you are proceeding your case against. There obviously is a relevant connection to this as well. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, without question. And it seems that these, I'll give you a brief lesson in the history as I understand it. We're dealing with the Freemason Society as well. Societies of, there's jesters, there's all sorts of different names. And this idea of using paper to represent tangible gold or silver or other goods held in value or of value, this notion maybe was not originated, but certainly in terms of history, the first time I know about it being employed is by the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar were to guard the road from between Rome and Jerusalem. And this road was the place where bandits would attempt to steal from the travelers. So the Knights Templars' role became to guard travelers, especially important travelers who might be carrying valuable goods, to protect them from these bandits. Of course, this is dangerous, and so the idea of issuing a note which would be honored by a colleague at a different place for goods, gold, etc., this became commonplace on that road because it seemed at the time it seemed to make sense. I suspect that it became clear that there could be games played with this because there would be gold being given, paper being issued, and then paper being redeemed. Sometimes paper would be lost, in which case presumably there would be nothing to redeem. And I think that this capital that ended up becoming a mask, it began to be amassed at that point, and it's continued ever since. What we know as a Ponzi is essentially what has been put into place. It's been in place for a very long time. But at the end of the day, a human owns the fruit of their labor. When you do something, you plant a garden, you look after the garden, at the end of the season, you reap the rewards. People figure out that they can actually reap rewards without any effort. You begin to get into the realm of what we're dealing with, where you have people finding out conniving ways in which they can relieve people who are doing the work of the fruit of their labor. And that's about as that's about as basic as I can put it.
CVN will be continuing to stay on top of these two landmark actions that promise to shake the very foundations of those who have enslaved humanity and the planet. The ACP-IT-CCCS lawsuit is the first of its kind, and as Mr. Bowman indicated, as investigations dig deeper, the deepest sources will ultimately be found. Although there are many roads of involvement, in this particular case, all roads lead to Rome. In a loosely related incident, the Galactic Free Press has translated an Italian story reporting that the Italian financial police have, for the first time in history, conducted a search of the Vatican. The translated version is a bit hard to understand, but indicates that 4 people are alleged to be involved so far, and appears to be tied into tax offenses and money laundering crimes. The sum of money involved is more than 800 million euros. Among the buildings searched was the Institute of the Immaculate Hospital and the headquarters of the provincial head of the congregation. Russia Today, RT.com, and London's Telegraph.co.uk websites are reporting that WikiLeaks is on the move again with a mass release of emails relating to Syria between 2006 and 2012. According to the WikiLeaks website, the files shine a light on the inner workings of the Syrian government and economy, but they also reveal how the West and Western companies say one thing and do another. The first release has shown how a subsidiary of Italian industrial giant Finmeccanica supplied expensive communications equipment to the military and police, even though publicly the Italian government was condemning the Syrian leadership. In another example of how money gets wasted, a Wolfson Economics Prize worth $390,000 has been awarded to a top British economic consultancy firm for the best plan for dealing with member states leaving the EU. The fact that this was even offered is a strong indication that sources are aware of its impending and imminent collapse. The details can be read through the summary link if anyone is interested. CVN sent an email to Simon Wolfson, the CEO of Next, and the sponsor of the prize, to point out the reality of the current economic situation and the proposal by the BRICS Alliance to introduce an equity-based economic model, while also addressing the fact that the fractional reserve model is not only criminal and corrupt, but that it also is bankrupt. Mr. Wolfson has not yet replied to this email. Russia Today, RT.com, has also reported that on July 3rd, that police have raided the villa of former French President Nicolas Sarkozy, his former government apartment, and law offices associated to Sarkozy. The public reason given for the raids is related to a campaign finance corruption scandal involving excessive donations given to him by France's richest woman, Liliane Bettencourt. Sarkozy, whose official diplomatic immunity expired in mid-June, is being investigated for several other allegations, including profiting from illegal arms dealings with Pakistan and also accepting millions from former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Sarkozy was reported as being away in Canada at the time of the raid. No further information was available. It has come to the attention of CVN that there appears to be a lot of emotions being stirred up about the issue of mass arrests and the use of containment that was offered by Archangel Michael on a recent episode of An Hour with an Angel. Cosmic Vision News would like to gently offer some thoughts for consideration as you search for the answer that is most meaningful to you personally. CVN has spoken in the past about everything being energy, and how energies act and interact upon other energies. Science has proven this. Science has also proven that we are all one, and that the essence of every aspect of life in physical, non-physical, visible, and invisible form is connected to what most would consider to be a divine creator. Some people remember aspects of past lives, and those memories are of both being good and bad. The evolution of each individual appears to follow the learning of lessons throughout each life path. The sooner and more quickly a soul learns these lessons, the sooner a soul can move on to the next experience and lesson for its own spiritual growth. The program, on at least one occasion, has spoken about how all humans learn and use what James Redfield has called control dramas and what Eckhart Tolle has called pain bodies. When things do not go our way, each human will resort to a particular control drama or pain body to protect, preserve, and justify one's perception for accepting something as one's truth. Truth is subjective and relates to one's opinion or feeling in a specific moment of now that was formed according to one's uniquely different and equally beautiful filters that are a part of one's life path. As we heard earlier, NASA is now officially acknowledging the potential exists for multidimensional and time travel. Near-death research has supported the existence of a life beyond the physical form we currently know. Most listeners know, or at least are becoming aware of the fact that the galactics and celestials are not allowed to operate under the same laws that we do. The laws by which they operate are universal and divine. If we immediately respond by seeking revenge, where is the energy transformed? When will peace ever be restored if there is not one or more individuals willing to be the stronger and more light-filled beings who are prepared to demonstrate the courageous step of taking one for humanity? If you knew that your choice to forgive another could help all of humanity, or you could choose to take your revenge and whatever consequences, which would you choose? Is your faith and belief in Divine Creator strong enough to see you through that choice? Is forgiveness not what Divine Creator has often taught through many religious texts? Nelson Mandela forgave his captors for 26 years of imprisonment upon his release from jail in South Africa. Last week, CBN shared a story of Dr. Quantum, a story about perspective. Most of us living in a 3D reality are unable to perceive a reality beyond what we currently know. Therefore, all choices and decisions are based upon what we think we know and accept as truth in each moment, until something else changes. Modern humanity has never really known any other way of dealing with crime except to arrest and punish. The only way for most of us to envision such a global change as the one we are undertaking now is to envision a mass arrest. It is what most of us know. It wasn't always this way, however. Many Aboriginal, First Nation, and tribal cultures practiced a form of containment known as banishment. In being banned from the tribe, one was no longer recognized as being a part of that group, and therefore one would have to exist on one's own away from the direct support and love of that community. The self-reflection, while in banishment, may bring about a form of vision quest to reconnect and remember one's true being in order to learn the necessary lessons. The intent was never to harm, but rather to help facilitate healing through tough love. The Admiralty system of law has several definitions for one word. Many times, this definition is not always the same interpretation that most people have come to know, and this is why one of the reasons why Admiralty law has been so effective against the masses. A legal definition for the word arrest is as follows: a seizure or forcible restraint, an exercise of the power to deprive a person of his or her liberty, the taking or keeping of a person in custody by legal authority, especially in response to a criminal charge. An arrest may occur, 1, by any act that indicates an intention to take the arrestee into custody and that subjects the arrestee to the actual control and will of the person making the arrest, or 2, by the consent of the person to be arrested. There is no arrest where there is no restraint, and the restraint must be under real or pretended legal authority. However, the detention of a person need not be accompanied by formal words of arrest or a station house booking to constitute an arrest. Those choosing to live in 3D energies may interpret this as a seizure or forcible restraint, and most may envision handcuffs as a tool to accomplish this. An arrest may occur by any act that indicates an intention to take the arrestee into custody, jail, and subjects the arrestee to the actual control and will of the person making the arrest, the agents of Admiralty law. There is no arrest where there is no restraint, and the restraint must be under real or pretended authority. With Admiralty law, it is pretended authority. Let's look at it now from the higher 5-dimensional perspective to see if the same applies. Those choosing to live in 5D energies may interpret this as seizure and forcible restraint within the container of light and love. No handcuffs are required. An arrest may occur by any act that indicates an intention to take the arrestee into custody, containment, and subjects the arrestee to the actual control and will of universal and or divine law. There is no arrest where there is no restraint, and the restraint in this case is real authority, divine authority. An argument could be made that containment and arrest are the same, except the application is different, one being 3-dimensional, the other being 5-dimensional, and more reflective of the energies of the new Gaia. Therefore, it can be understood if one is not fully comprehending a higher dimensional concept such as containment and how divine law brings back to each soul all the feelings of pain that have been inflicted upon another for the purposes of learning who one is. If one learns those lessons and chooses to come back as a better individual, soul evolution has occurred. If the free will to drop further into fear and negativity results, that soul will continue repeating experiences in lifetimes until the soul remembers why it wanted that lesson. It wants to remember ultimately itself as a divine expression of love. In his message from the Galactic Federation earlier this week, Sheldon Neidl may also have hinted at the higher dimensional form of containment in these words:
"The layers of control with which the Cabal dominated you are rapidly disintegrating, and as these layers lose their effectiveness, the unbelievable extent of the avarice and illegality of their institutions begins to be revealed. Heaven has graced us with an amazing tool which permits us to monitor these miscreants, and in this regard we note that those who deeply wish to enslave humanity are in fact a most incompetent bunch. Their many procedural errors and unwarranted overstepping of their authority plainly brought about their present predicaments, and the mountains of illegal debt are the direct result of this unbridled avarice. In this, Heaven provided a most effective means for us to subdue them, and the addition of our inner Earth and space cousins has sealed the deal for humanity. We are very grateful for this, and deeply bless all in heaven for her wondrous gifts and for our deliverance from the dark."
Archangel Michael revealed that the containment is not getting off easy, as some are now suggesting. In some ways, going to jail would be getting off easy, but that would only delay the inevitable. When one is faced with all the crimes and all the pain that one has inflicted upon even one individual, not to mention all of humanity, that individual would be experiencing extreme pain while going through the withdrawal of the energetic addictions that caused that behavior. Can you remember a time in your life when someone has thrown back at you a particularly painful memory that you were responsible for? Did you feel badly? Did you feel or wish in that moment that the other individual would let go of that and forget it? This might be a good 3D interpretation for trying to understand containment. Of course, because it is still 3D, it may not have the energies of love, but the concept of negative energies that one has put out being reflected back with feeling and emotion is the idea. If you felt badly in that moment, try multiplying that by 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000. If you were feeling badly and guilty over one small event, try experiencing the emotions and energies of all of humanity and the planet that have suffered at the hands of those who have enslaved life. That would be the kind of torture that would have a soul begging for death, to try to escape the pain of those memories. The only problem is that death will not remove the lessons of those experiences. Why would you be willing to risk your own soul evolution by seeking revenge upon another who will already be going through his or her personal hell? Forgiveness does not mean the soul will no longer experience justice. Forgiveness is merely a choice to release one's desire to react in hatred and fear, and to not be held as a slave to the energies attached to that experience. As time goes on, this lesson will become clear. The test, however, is in deciding whether or not your faith or belief in what you want to experience in your future is strong enough to accept and live with that choice, whatever that choice may be. The message from the Celestials at this time is that Gaia will no longer tolerate energies of negativity. It was Cobra who said that on one of his updates that Earth will shake off humanity like fleas if we are unwilling or unable to participate in living in love. The Galactics have said that they cannot interfere with individual free will. If there are souls among humanity that still have karmic issues to balance and resolve, the Galactics cannot and will not interfere with those. Therefore, it is very possible that some listening to this program will feel very strongly a desire to seek out revenge for acts committed against them, one has the free will to do so. What is gently being offered is to weigh the consequences of what one is wanting to do against the opportunity to be a part of a new earth. If one is willing to learn the lesson and do one's best to forgive another, help will be there to participate within the energies of the new Gaia, unless one has decided at a higher level to not participate. If one is aware and accepts the potential consequences that come with choosing to act in vengeance or any other energy of negativity, there will be consequences. And one of those consequences may involve leaving Gaia later, because the energy of that individual will no longer be in balance with the higher energies to which Gaia will be resonating in the very near future. What will you choose, and are you able to accept consequences relating to that choice, or those choices? The information being presented at this time seems to paint a rather strong picture supporting the creation of a new Gaia, a healthy, loving, and prosperous planet with no negativity. The shifting energies will not allow negativity to exist at the higher vibration. Containment may be considered a 5-dimensional rehabilitation center, so to speak, where 3D addictions are broken with love and light and not through energies of negativity. If you wish to arrest people and see them harmed in retribution, this is your free will, but also know that with great creative power of the God-Goddess within you, that also brings great responsibility and accountability to that choice, and it is very likely that there will be a painful review of the harm and suffering inflicted upon others when your lesson was to learn about love in the first place. Global peace and healing begins with a choice, and this choice can only be made by you. Due to listener response to the story about what is unfolding in Ireland, there are questions of wanting to help. At this time, Veronica Keane is having health challenges as she is being targeted by microwave-oriented devices. She requires treatments for these, and she does not have the resources to do so, nor does she have enough to support her work. If there are any who are survivors of physical and sexual abuse by priests and who feel happy in knowing that the truth is getting out, perhaps you may consider lending a little financial support to her in this time for all that she has done to bring this subject into the light. There is a donations tab that has now been set up near the bottom of the home page for the foundation, www.montaguekeane.com. A direct link to PayPal will be posted in the summary to this newscast. Any others who may feel called to assist her in this work is also very graciously and lovingly received. Just to take a moment to bring listeners up to speed, Cosmic Vision News is growing in leaps and bounds with support around the world. Please know how grateful I am in receiving the love, energies, and support that you all have been sending. Please do not feel offended if I cannot reply to emails that are being sent, or if the message is really short. I'm just running rapidly out of time to reply to people. Listeners to CVN can now listen to the archive through links to the 2012 Scenario website, through the blog site of Kawila Pele, and also on my blog at A Green Print for Life. On my blog and on a CVN page on the website, the archive of all links to newscasts and all links to summaries with the links to news sources can be found there. CVN now also has a Facebook page under the title Cosmic Vision News. Show summaries are also posted there. So please feel free to visit the page and click on Like. It would be great to have everyone like the page so that any media people watching this program and following this page can begin to see just how many are interested in the future of journalism. It may even inspire some journalists to start doing their own project like Cosmic Vision News, and the more who do, the better it is. Thank you again for all your support. So that is the unfolding consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is a part of the Inlight radio group of programs heard at this local time each week. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you that you have to know what sparks the light in you so that you, in your own way, can illuminate the world. Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love and hold the vision of light and peace in your hearts, and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.
Thank You White Knights is supported by ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, home of wellness products for the health conscious such as MMS1 and 2, Lugol's iodine, DMSO, colloidal silver and MSM at ExclusiveWellnessClub.com. Shipping outside the United States available. Link below. This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit thankyouwhiteknights.com.